This podcast is brought to you by Brown and Whitward Foundation. Their number is not available because we don't want you calling them. They don't want you calling them. They don't want me to call them. Just know that they're sponsoring this podcast and you're not allowed in. Did you know Tennessee is the rain capital of the world? Actually, all the forests in Tennessee are rainforests because it rains there all the time. You know what hates the rain? Leaky roofs. That's right. And your roof is leaking. You can't just put a diaper up there. It's not a baby. It's a roof. In fact, it's the most important piece of your house. If you didn't have a roof, you would just have a bunch of walls, and that would make a bowl to hold rain. So, you got to call my man, Tony Mullins. Tony Mullins hand forges the best roofs in the world. He makes them in the rainiest city of the world to withstand the weathers of the rainforest. So give Tony a call at 423-593-9605. That's the original Affordable Roofing Company, a division of Mullins Home Repair. 423-593-9605. Listen up, guys. Tournament season is around the corner. In order to get better at the sport, you guys gotta get stronger. You need a superhero. You need Captain Cranberry at 10-8 Personal Training. To improve your odds of winning, you need to add a new element and get stronger. Win the positions, win the matches, win the payday, because your first trial is free. So you could experience the awesomeness that 10-8 Personal Training has to offer. My man can make the average Lieutenant Cranberry into a Captain Cranberry of his own. So give him a call. 951-445-3133. Again, 10-8 Personal Training. 951-445-3133. Everybody wants a clean house and a clean driveway. But a house is a pretty tall thing to reach on top of and clean. That's why you got to call the tallest guy in all of Chattanooga, Steve at Elite Clean, to come clean the top of your houses. Steve gets on these ladders and he scrubs the top of your houses by hand. Why? Because he's a giant. You're not a giant. You can't do that. Steve has the power to do that. And he does that at a very, very reasonable price. Oh, yeah, Bobby does it too. He puts Bobby on his shoulders and then they reach the top and Bobby scrubs. So call them, Elite Clean Chattanooga, 423-389-4771. Again, that's Elite Clean Chattanooga, 423-389-4771. Or visit them at elitecleanchattanooga.com for all your Christmas lights and pressure washing needs. We are running a back-to-school special here at Militia. That's right, a huge back-to-school special. For only $25, you could sponsor the Tomcast. That's right, only $25 an episode. You will get your own personal ad. I will eventually cut them and send you one of your own to use. We have great packages. Give me a call. If you're hearing this right now, improve your business and get on the air. Welcome to the Militia MMA podcast. This is episode 18, I think, and I am super excited. I think I have our second to last OG on the podcast. Managed to get him out during the week. Long story short, the one, the only Colton McDaniel. How you doing, Colton?
Doing well, Tom. How are you?
I'm doing well. Now, Colton, you're originally from here, aren't you?
Born and raised.
Georgia, though, right?
Georgia, right over the line. Yep.
You're a Georgianite? Is that what they call you?
Sure. I guess now.
So you grew up in Rossville,
Chickamauga.
Chickamauga. So that's not right over the line, is it?
It can be. Close to Rossville, like the edge of Chickamauga and Rossville.
What's the difference between Chickamauga and Rossville?
Chickamauga is a little bit more like country, I would say. Would be the biggest difference.
That's just it? It's a little more rural?
A little more rural. Yep.
Not like the big city of Rossville?
Not the big city of Rossville.
So you went to school at Chickamauga?
Went to school at Ridgeland in Rossville. So high school was at Ridgeland in Rossville.
Grammar school?
Grammar school was at Cherokee Ridge in Chickamauga, yeah.
Okay. What was it like there? So you grew up pretty rural, huh?
Yeah. So when I went to Cherokee Ridge, I was the first class to go through all the way. So they had just built the school, so I was the first class to go all the way through it from kindergarten to 5th grade.
Oh wow!
So it was a brand new school.
So where did they get their learning on before that?
I'm not sure. I think Fairview had an elementary school, and then if you didn't go there, you either had to go to Stone Creek or Rossville.
Or you worked the farm, right?
Yeah.
Was there a lot of farms?
Not really. It's just not as dense as Rossville, I guess, is the best way to put it.
Like, yeah, people got more land in Chickamauga.
Yeah.
But is there farming at all there? Or?
A little bit. When you get more toward, like, Kensington, Flintstone area, you get farms popping up.
People more or less have, land with animals, right?
Yeah.
In Chickamauga.
Yeah.
You live there, right? Yeah. Do you live there right now, right, Chickamauga?
I do. Yep.
Nice. You got a couple acres, or?
I think our property is 1 acre.
Oh, nice.
But it's nice and flat, which is what I wanted. And I was tired of mowing uphill.
Yeah, people don't realize that. That's the big draw of downfall of having property is mowing, huh?
Mm-hmm.
I heard even with a zero turn, it'll still take you. If you have over 10 acres, it takes you a while.
Yeah.
So did you grow up on land?
Yeah, a little bit. We had we didn't have cleared off land. We had a big woods on our property, so I hung out there a lot.
You probably had about 10 acres? Did you grow up in 10 acres?
No, I think the property that I grew up on, my grandmother's property, was probably around 5 acres, 4 or 5 acres.
So you probably spent a lot of time playing in the woods?
Oh yeah.
That's what it is?
That's it.
When'd you get your first gun?
So I've never actually owned a gun myself.
Uh-oh.
But yeah.
Don't let the Georgians hear you, right?
I can't let them know. But I grew up around them and everything like that. So my grandparents always had guns. My stepdad always had a gun. He was military.
When did you shoot your first gun?
9mm.
When?
10, probably.
10, okay.
Yeah, I was a little older than most people around here.
Yeah, everybody's like, as soon as I was walking, I was shooting.
Mm-hmm.
I was walking with guns in my hands. What's your favorite area of Georgia?
I mean, I grew up in Chickamauga, so I really like that area. I think it's rare. The community's really good. Like when you get into downtown Chickamauga, it's pretty small. You know a lot of people.
That's cool.
It's just natural,
So when did you play any sports growing up?
Yep, I played football, wrestled, and played soccer. Soccer was my main sport.
Soccer was your main sport. Mm-hmm. Well, did you try to go to college for soccer or anything?
I was actually accepted to go to the University of Maryland, but when I went up there, I ended up getting hurt and just came home.
Right. What was the injury?
ACL tear.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Did you get surgery?
No, I didn't have to have surgery, thankfully.
Really?
But it was the second time I tore it.
Are you sure you didn't need surgery?
I may have, but I didn't get it.
That seems to be the thing around here in the South. Everybody's like, oh, the doctor said I didn't need the surgery. They said as long as I wasn't throwing footballs like Tom Brady, I don't need the surgery. Well, if you're going to be an MMA fighter, you probably should keep all your parts. That's what I always tell people.
It wasn't. So the explanation that I got was it was not a full tear.
Oh,
So,
okay. Yeah,
yeah.
they do heal partial tears
Yeah.
on the ACL.
I've never fully tore my ACL.
Yeah, I've heard of people like getting like tendons cut. Like they're like, oh, that it's tore, the ACL is tore, but they could just cut it. It'll be a quicker rehab. I say no, keep all your parts, take the longer rehab.
It's funny because I didn't even know it was torn for like 3 days.
You have trouble walking?
A little bit. It was just like my
Twists.
my balance was off really bad.
And twisting, probably.
Yeah.
Twisting's really painful when you get an injury on the knee. That seems to be the worst. So that ended your soccer career.
Yeah, pretty much.
Oh, bummer. Were you bummed out? Like,
Not really. I mean, so I'd been doing it for so long, and once I made it to college, I realized that I wasn't really big enough to play at that level, if that makes sense. I was more of a role player growing up anyways.
and it probably America at the time it's still not really. It's starting to become a soccer country.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I had to go so far away to even play, because SEC schools don't have soccer teams.
And then you, if you want to make a profession out of it, these other countries have better infrastructure.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Like
I mean,
the club scene is crazy.
I mean, you have people being brought up in like the Champions League and stuff like that, where they're playing for the club team since they were like 7, so they get brought up through the program, and then they make the main team if they become good enough. So.
In this country?
No, that's in like England and stuff like that.
Yes. What is this soccer? What is the soccer scene in the U.S.?
So the MLS is growing. It's pretty good now. It's really hard for me to even say that the USA squad is a world-class team. I haven't really kept up with it that much. It's one of those things where I don't really like watching the sport.
Because you played it so much.
Right. It's hard to explain, but like when I watch soccer, I'll probably be watching with people that don't know anything about it, so I'm having to answer 1,000 questions as I'm watching.
You're not watching with a soccer fan.
Right. Exactly.
Now, is the Red Wolves here in Eastridge, are they a MLS team?
They are not. So they're the league below. I'm not sure what it's called, but so I believe the league they're in has a chance for relegation into the MLS. So like the best team in this league could potentially play the worst team in the MLS and actually take their spot.
What? Yeah, because it's still probably like the Wild West with soccer.
Yeah, I mean, I think the relegation system is a better sports incentive because, like, with the NFL, if you suck, you're still in the NFL.
Imagine that, like, Vince McMahon put together to get the best XFL team, and he's like, we're gonna take the Jets spot, or at least we're gonna try.
I think it's definitely interesting,
That's cool.
Yeah.
It sucks for, like, imagine you're the city that's the worst, and all you had was your soccer team.
That's high stakes, man.
That's high stakes.
Yeah.
What do you think these Red Wolves get paid?
I think they make actually pretty good money now. I would,
Like what?
if I had to
30,000?
wager a guess, I think their star player probably makes 90 to 100.
I would say the star.
Yeah, their best
They
player.
probably got like 3 of those that they're paying like 90 to 110.
Yeah, but the Red Wolves is owned. They own multiple soccer teams, so I think they have a South Carolina team as well. So they're a pretty big organization compared to like CFC, which started in Chattanooga.
Oh wait, so I'm confused now.
So there's 2 semi-professional soccer teams in Chattanooga. You got CFC, Chattanooga Football Club, and then you have the Red Wolves now.
Do they just play the Red Wolves all the time?
They're in different leagues, so yeah.
They have scrimmages.
Yeah. There's a little bit of bad blood between those organizations, from what I understand.
That's so crazy. Of course there is, because they're in the same city.
Yeah.
And they're like, you play soccer in this city. We hate you.
From what I understand, when the Red Wolves kind of came in, they stole a bunch of staff and players from CFC, pretty much. So
where else are you going to hire from in the area?
yeah, I mean,
you're gonna steal them because you're gonna be like, hey, you want to make more money doing this here, or that raise you or promotion you wanted? You wanted to move up? Well, we need a guy in that spot that's not available over there.
Well, that's another thing too. Like, you can be a fantastic player, but if you're not getting promoted, you're not going to be picked up by the bigger teams, right? And that's what the Red Wolves are really good at, is promotion. So if you want to get your name out there, that's probably the place to be.
Yeah, it grows the sport. The one's mad because the other is taking the monopoly away.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I could see why that when you take people's money, they get a little fussy, but it helps the soccer community.
Yeah, I think it's good. I think it's cool to have two teams in town too, because you can have that kind of back and forth.
Yeah, you can make it. They should be making each other better.
I wish they were in the same league.
They're in two different leagues, right?
Yeah.
Which league is bigger?
CFC, or not CFC's league. The Red Wolves league is the bigger league.
Because I haven't even heard of
But
CFC.
I think it's like
Till now.
I think it's like MLS, and then you've got like the B League, and then like B League 2. It's not like so much worse that it's like a C League,
Yeah.
but it's like, there's two different leagues, and they're both kind of at the same caliber. It's just the league that the Red Wolves is in is the league that's like recognized, so they're the ones that get to fight for relegation.
Okay.
I believe that's how it works.
And you said there's multiple Red Wolves team,
the organization owns multiple soccer teams.
not just the Red Wolves.
Right.
There's not Red Wolves 1, Red Wolves 2.
No,
It's like
I think they have different names.
We'll have one's the Red Wolves. This one's the Blue Barracudas.
Right, exactly.
This one's the Shrine of the Silver Monkey.
Mm-hmm. It's pretty good.
Oh. So hold on, I want to know a little bit more about soccer. I just lost my place thinking of Legends of the Hidden Temple. So do you go to Red Wolves games?
I've been to one Red Wolves game. I don't necessarily care for live events very much, but when I was there, it was cool. So
It's probably different than
very,
a live.
very good stadium that they have going on.
Is it brand new?
Yeah, brand new.
Is it probably different overseas? Like a soccer game is probably good in England.
I would imagine so. I mean, they're lighting the building on fire over there, so you're kind of forced to have a good time.
Yeah, they really bring you. Yeah. Well said. Yeah, that'd probably be like something I would really want to do if I was overseas and had the chance to go to like an English game.
So my mother was in the military, and she was in Germany when the Berlin Wall fell. And when the wall fell, she was MP, military police, and she had to go to the soccer games to do crowd control. They would the fans would pick up cars and move them out of the way.
Wow. Get enough hands on deck.
Yeah.
Cars were heavier back then, too.
Well, it's also like Germany, so the cars were more compact and stuff like that.
Yeah, but they were
but
made
still,
of
like
steel.
if a car was in the way, they would just move it.
We could. I think we'd have an easier time moving your car with that more people.
Oh, the Malibu? Oh, yeah.
It's lighter.
We would need George probably, but we could get it done.
Josh, we'll bribe him with some day-old Taco Bell.
Mm-hmm.
So you wrestled too?
A little bit. I wrestled through my first year of high school until I had to really dedicate myself to soccer.
Yeah, makes sense.
So, it was interesting because in middle school in 6th grade, I decided I needed to play more sports to stay in shape. So I was already playing football. I was already playing soccer. So I was like, I'll try out for basketball. And I did not make the basketball team because my hand-eye coordination is terrible. So I was like, all right, whatever, I'll wrestle. So I went to wrestle, and it was a very, very good decision because I ended up playing football and soccer to stay in shape for wrestling at that point.
Oh, nice. That's awesome. Now, it ended around, you did all 4 years in high school? Or
No, I just did my freshman year in high school.
Then you said, that's soccer.
By that point, I was a bit like Madeline, so I was having like 2 soccer practices a day.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. So I was going to my select practice and then back to school practice.
Yes, that's what I was doing with wrestling. for me, it was only I could only do one sport to even be competitive at.
Yeah, for sure.
Like to compete at the highest.
Yeah.
So it made sense because I was trying to get a scholarship, just probably like you were, and you got, which is tough.
Yeah,
Tough to do.
soccer scholarships are weird because they don't give you full rides.
I don't think they do
most
anything.
most of my scholarship was academic.
Yes, they find something, but then it helps get you that money.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that you could play collegiate soccer, that's and even get some money to do that, that's a huge accomplishment.
Yeah, it was. I worked really hard to get there. It was unfortunate that it ended like it did, but I think it ended up for the better.
That's how most people's soccer career ends, though, right?
Most of the time. So soccer's actually, like, as far as like injury per capita, it's like very dangerous compared to like football even.
It's ankles and knees.
The biggest injury in soccer is collarbone breaks.
Oh, I could see that.
Yeah, because people will be challenging for the ball and they'll fall on their shoulder, break their collarbone.
Yeah, or like shoulder separations.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But yeah, but the big ones when they happen, especially because you're wearing a cleat and you're kicking a ball.
Yep.
Is probably knees and ankles that end.
Meniscus is really big. Like the first time I had a partial tear in my ACL, it was in 7th grade. I partially tore my ACL in one leg and partially tore my MCL in the other leg at the exact same time.
And then it evened out.
Yeah.
But would you agree with me that for the genuine semi-serious to serious player, I would say maybe we'll say serious, it usually ends in an injury that takes away a step because it's such a speed sport.
Yeah, for sure. I know a few people that their stuff ended due to an injury like that, and especially when you're talking about like ACL and stuff like that, it's hard to bounce back from the same way.
The same with like any serious wrestler. You usually end your last wrestling match is usually a loss.
Yeah. So the kid that won, I don't know if it was this year or last year, but he won NCAA with 2 torn ACLs. Like, yeah, that's crazy. That's wild.
Yes.
Didn't want to tell anybody, and then but in the long run, that match is probably going to cost him because he did that. You know what I'm saying?
He's also going to have good medical staff.
Yeah, for sure.
He's going to get the right recovery. Things are different than they were 10 years ago.
That is super weird that you say that because I was just thinking about this the other day. Like, we've gotten so much better at like ACL injuries, knee injuries, like replacement.
Look at Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah. I think there's a power lifter that recently had double knee replacement, and he's like powerlifting again.
Yeah.
Like 10 years ago, you would like, good luck. You're not ever doing that again in your life. You know what I mean?
Athletes are getting crazy injuries at sports where injuries would end it, like football, and recovering and playing better than ever.
Yeah, there's leagues that are like, I think the NFL has floated the idea of banning knee replacements because it's such a performance advantage. Not like a performance advantage but like you get this guy with a ton of experience, he gets his knees replaced, and now he's like...
Yeah, maybe. Your parts, stock parts are the best parts on the body so far.
It's getting close, though.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
But you need the right doctor to put the parts in. That's big
for
thing.
Sure. I think the best, from what I understand, there's a really good doctor in Birmingham, and then I think New Jersey have the best doctors for that stuff. Am I right?
Yeah, I got New York.
North
Jersey. My doctor who does all my surgeries. Everybody's like, why do you go back to Jersey? Because I got a really, really good doctor. And, like, he was the first to do a robotic-assisted hip transplant. So, which is interesting about this is, so, if you want a hip replacement to stay, it all matters about, one of the big factors is lining up a hip. Usually, that is done with it used to be done before this with a person holding it up to somebody's hip and lining it up by eye. But now, they have the robot that lines it up perfectly where it should be aligned and holds it in place so he could do the surgery. So now these surgeries are lasting.
Okay, that makes sense because if it gets put in a little off, you're getting like awkward pressure on it over time.
Yes, or it's not. Yes, its functionality is compromised. So if you hold it up as near as perfect, it's going to come out good and last longer. But the robot does it perfect. The human does it. Or as close to perfect as we could comprehend.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. I never thought about like the alignment of having to do that stuff.
How important that is.
Yeah.
Yeah, the welder. Then the welder comes in and welds it on.
It's so crazy.
And then our physical therapy is getting, I wouldn't say smarter because my better physical therapists were a little bit older. But
I was reading a study where they're like talking about like, you know, like rice, rest ice, heat, all that stuff. That might not be true, apparently.
yeah, I heard mixed things.
Yeah.
That it is, it isn't. I think ice is a good thing. I don't know about elevation.
Yeah.
Compression. So it's rest. Oh, I could agree with that. Ice, compression, elevation.
Mm-hmm.
That's rice. For those of us who don't know.
I've been just like hanging on a pull-up bar, and that's helped my back.
Yeah, that's hanging. That's
Yeah.
good for your recovery too. So what? So when did you start becoming a fan of MMA?
Oh man, I can direct you to the exact moment that I became an MMA fan, and it was when Anderson Silva front kicked Vitor Belfort in the face.
Okay.
Entered the Matrix for about 45 seconds. So after I saw that, I was hooked. So what was that? 2013? 2000, maybe a little bit before that?
2013. Wow. Anderson Silva. He was, for the longest time, excuse me. For the longest time, Anderson Silva was like my favorite fighter because he was matrixing fights. Like Chris Lieben was the one that did it for me with Anderson Silva.
Mm-hmm.
You ever see us fight with Chris
I did.
Lieben?
Yeah, I've Anderson Silva was I was very impressionable toward him at the beginning. I really liked Anderson. I really liked GSP, watching him fight.
I wasn't a huge fan of his. His fights were always a little boring to me.
I mean, that's effectively what I was just about to say. Like, if you had to ask me my personal favorite fighter of all time, it's probably Anderson. Just because, I mean, you didn't miss a fight. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he was one of the original sellers. Him and like Chuck Liddell.
I also never missed a Carlos Condit fight.
Carlos Condit. Yeah, Carlos Condit's good.
He's got the dog in him.
Yeah, he is.
I appreciate that.
And he's very well rounded, but he's good at everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, Carlos Condit's good. My favorite was Anderson Silva for a time, Dan Henderson for a time, but through and through was like Chris Lytle. I loved Chris Lytle. Because he was a boxer that was a black belt. Was just always put on exciting fights, always came to fight. Now I lean towards like Matt Brown, same style of fighter.
I love Matt Brown too, and the longevity of his career is so impressive.
So impressive.
Yeah.
I fought on a card with him.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Him and Jim Miller too.
Yeah.
Matt Brown had like a losing record until he went to the UFC and got on the Ultimate Fighter. He was always talented, but was back in those days you make some wrong decisions by a promoter, you get shafted, or he was getting shafted by promoters taking fights last minute.
It's weird because I'm starting to see fighters that I've watched my entire stint watching the sport starting to retire. So like Cowboy's gone. He's retired now. It's really hard to catch a Demetrius Johnson fight now that he's at 1. Just stuff like that.
Paid.
Yeah. I mean, he deserves it. So.
Yeah, I'm happy for him. But I do think the best 125ers are overseas.
I agree with you.
because most people are smaller over there. Here, the average weight class is what the average male in America will fall under is 170 or 155.
Really, you think so?
Yes.
I would have pegged 185 over
Nope.
55.
55
That makes
and
sense.
70. I think it's 70 because 5'9", 5'10", 170 pounds if fit. That's very average.
Well, that's after a cut too. So like,
Yeah,
I would say
after a cut.
average weight would be
And then
probably
think about
in
how
that
much
range.
ground that covers. 55 to 70.
Well, I mean, you got.
It should be 55, 75, 85.
Yep, I agree with you.
That's why also there's enough. But then I think 75 would be where the most fighters, or 65 would still be number one. That's why they're the hardest weight classes to get in the UFC. Actually, Sean Shelby told me, if you were 185, I could get you on the Strikeforce card, but we have too many 170ers and 155ers.
Yeah, I have like an internal like argument with myself all the time because I'm not sure if they need a weight class between middleweight and light heavyweight, like in the 190s, or if they need one between light heavyweight and the heavyweight cap. You know what I mean? I feel like there needs to be something in one of those spots, but
it's not the lighter one.
I think the argument is like if you say like you debut a 195 weight class, the 185 champ's probably just going to be the champ of both divisions, right?
If we did 175, 165, and 175 would be different. And 155, there would be 3 different champs.
Okay, so you would have to like move every 10 pounds.
No. I'm saying those 3, I think you would have 3 different champs.
Okay, I see.
I think you would. Wholeheartedly.
But from 185, 195, and 205.
No. Because 205 and 185 interchange so much. A lot of fighters still go back and forth.
Right,
They're
right.
a little bit it's a pudgier weight class, too.
Yeah, I guess you can lose more weight that way.
But you see, like, 55 or 70ers, they're ripped most of the time.
Yeah.
You see guys in 85, 205, they got a little meat on them.
Yeah.
I think maybe it would have to be a 225 or a 235.
I think that'd be cool.
Maybe 235. Let's separate the heavyweights.
Yeah, I think 235 would be good because then you have like the undersized heavyweights like Stipe would really flourish in those.
I think he's big.
weight classes. He's 230. I think he was 230 when he fought Francis this
Oh,
last
was
time.
he?
He wanted
Yeah,
to
you
cut
know
weight.
what you would have to do? You would have to take everybody's weigh-in and then see what the numbers are and then, like, minus 10 pounds on everybody. Just put a negative 10 pounds and then see where everybody's at.
Yeah.
Like, assume a cut, maybe even 15 or 20 because heavyweights could cut more. It's harder for lighter guys to cut and make weight than bigger. The bigger you are, the easier. More fat you have, the easier it is to make weight.
Right.
So it's usually smaller guys have harder cuts. Who's your favorite, like, up and comer or new guy to the UFC? All time favorite, you would say, is Anderson.
It's probably Carlos, honestly.
Okay.
Now that I think about it, but I really like Anderson.
Well, before we even go to that question I asked you, how awesome is it that he's killing it in boxing?
Oh, I love it.
And Jake Paul does not even talk
love it.
about fighting him.
Doesn't want to say his name one time.
He might be the greatest combat sportsman of all time.
It's close. I don't know who I would put in that argument with him, honestly.
Unless John Jones, when he retires, fucks a few people up in boxing.
Yeah, maybe.
Or somebody fights Tyson, if one of the heavyweights beat a legitimate champion.
I mean, it's really hard because you can talk about, like, I'm just going to use Alistair Overeem as an example, but he never got the belt. But, like, it's really hard to separate, like, glory in the MMA. You know what I mean? It's like almost like
they're very similar.
Yeah, it's hard to say that you are in a different sport, but, like, I think boxing, there's more intricacy to it. The crossover
to beat a
is
boxer
more
at boxing,
right? Exactly.
Because you have realistically, MMA striking is Muay Thai at its best. It's not boxing. So you're gonna take a guy who only got to worry about his 2 hands, and hitting and not getting hit and footwork and all that.
Mm-hmm.
And then he's been training his whole life to just do that against the MMA guy who has to do all the Muay Thai stuff, addition with wrestling and grappling. To beat a boxer at the guy who's only had to do that his whole life is a huge accomplishment.
Yeah, for sure. And we're not even talking about like Anderson Silva beating some boxer. He beat Chavez Jr., right?
Yes.
Like a world champion.
Yes, a lot of people argue and said he's been like, because of his dad, he's been kind of given some fights. Like, he's a world champion, but,
Yeah.
he's not. He's a little bit like Maggiani.
Yeah, I could see that. He's not someone that, if we're talking about boxing, I wouldn't bring
Anderson
up.
Silva didn't beat his dad in his prime. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
He beat, I think, a spoiled kid. Not like saying his dad spoiled him, but is spoiled in his career because of his dad's accolades.
Right. Yeah, you see that happen sometimes.
I think his dad, his son or his grandson, who beat.
What's that?
He beat his son, Chavez Jr., right?
Yeah, but I think Chavez Jr. was a world champion as well,
yeah,
right?
he was.
Yeah.
You want to know something funny? Recently, I think within the last year, the grandson fought, Chavez Jr. fought, and Cesar Chavez fought.
Really?
Yeah,
That's
I think
wild.
his was an exhibition, and he was the only one who won.
Anderson Silva's sons look really good every time they fight. They look
Yeah.
very good.
What are they doing? MMA?
MMA, I think kickboxing right now, if I'm not mistaken.
We're at a funny era where you're seeing a lot of these combat sports guys are like raising their kids, jiu-jitsu,
Frank Mir's daughter is doing very well.
boxing. Well, if you see jiu-jitsu is taken over by 19-year-old kids
Oh yeah, man.
whose dads are high-level guys, but not like the world champions.
Mm-hmm.
But they're training their sons to be world champions.
I really wish jiu-jitsu was more popular when I was younger, like around here.
Yeah, wrestling makes good jiu-jitsu.
Yeah,
Because that's the harder thing to learn.
I think you're right. I think like it's an important, like the grindiness you get from wrestling is important for jiu-jitsu.
And awareness of physics, how to be heavy. We say jiu-jitsu as a sport, and then we compare it to wrestling, but jiu-jitsu is wrestling because it's the sport itself. Jiu-jitsu is a fancy name for submission wrestling.
Yeah.
And then you got two sports in it: submission and wrestling.
What did the Romans call it? It starts with a P.
Pancration.
Pancration. That's right. It was basically just submission grappling, right? You just went until someone gave up. Was kind of how that worked.
I think there was even like early pancration was fighting.
Okay. So more MMA.
Yeah, because my old wrestling coach used to have a joke. He says, wrestling's the second oldest sport. He said running was the first one. He says, wrestling only happened after you caught the guy. But I believe probably running was the oldest sport.
Yeah. We used to have a joke in high school, track's not a sport, it's a race. So that's what we used to say.
That's funny. I've heard a couple of bad fighters say records are for DJs. Well, not bad fighters. Fighters who took bad fights. Good fighters. Bad decision-making skills.
There's something to be said. Me and Josh were talking about it last night, actually. That kid that actually stepped up and fought Bo in his Contender Series fight, like, big respect to you, man, but I probably wouldn't have signed to that one when you have an undefeated record.
Yeah. That was a bad move, and he came at him with that flying gallop.
Yeah. I think he, like, bailed on a high jump kick, if you want me to be honest.
Flying knee, but he, like, just...
I don't even think he was going for a flying knee. I think he was actually trying to do a flying jump kick, like like Taekwondo style.
I don't know what he was doing.
It was a bad idea.
It was so bad. He just galloped at him, and he got taken down.
Dude,
And arguably, he probably fought that guy was probably the least experienced guy on the card, the 3-0 guy.
you called it, though, with kind of the developmental and all that.
George said he signed a 2-fight deal.
Oh, okay.
George said to us, he's got to fight 2 fights on the Contender Series. Yeah, he said Bo signed a deal. He's going to Contender Series. I was like, oh, that's fast. Wow. He's like, yeah, but he's got to fight 2 fights in the Contender Series.
He looked impressive, man. He looked good. And he fights just like George fights, which is funny, right?
But how funny is it that George is like, he signed a 2-fight deal, and they turned into Dana White saying, oh, you got to do one more because you're only 2. And they made it like somebody told Dana, like, come up with an excuse why he's not good enough for the UFC.
This is show business, baby. Yeah,
then meanwhile, James Toney wanted to go fight in the UFC, and they're like, okay. James Toney went to every fight that Dana was at, every UFC.
James Toney, the boxer.
Yes.
But
wait. Let me finish it. Bought tickets. Made videos on MySpace. Dana, I'm looking for you. I want in the UFC. Went to events. And it's like, Dana, put me on. And he's like, just kind of giving him a runaround. James Toney, world champion boxer. They finally had enough. He's like, all right, I'll let you in. 0-0 MMA, you got Randy Couture.
Yes. What did you think was going to happen with that matchup?
And then Randy Couture takes him down outside single and subs him.
Was it Randy?
Yes.
I thought it was Frank Mir.
No. Randy Couture.
No, you're right. It was Randy, wasn't it?
No, they gave him the Olympic wrestling. They beat him real quick, and then they said, here's your walking papers. And then they gave CM Punk 2 fights of evenly matched fights. How could that is so...
So
that sucks.
Conspiracy time. The James Toney thing happened before Endeavor, and the CM Punk thing happened after Endeavor.
What's Endeavor?
The company that bought the UFC.
Okay.
So I think pre-Endeavor, it was a bit more like, to be here, you need to be an MMA fighter. Now it's more of a show, if that makes sense.
Yes. Well, a lot of things changed because of the Contender Series, but...
They have bills to pay, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, they told Herschel Walker he couldn't fight.
Herschel Walker looked super impressive in his MMA fights. I don't know if you've seen him, but talk about a freak athlete.
Yeah, I already have favorable matches, but he's an old athlete. But
dude,
it's not on paper maybe the most favorable matchup, but they told him he couldn't go in, and they let CM Punk in.
Yeah, that's a bit odd.
People don't realize now guys could go 5-0, 6-1 and make the Contender Series. It wasn't like that.
No.
Not too long ago. 8 years ago, it was very cutthroat. It was like you were playing soccer and you were the last place team all the time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean there wasn't any like you'd get cut after a bad performance back then, right? Almost.
Yeah. Yeah. If you didn't have like an unblemished, you couldn't be 14-3, 14-4, and you would just be just about on radar. It wasn't like 14-4, you would have been on the Contender Series now, or Bellator, or this or that.
They really like their undefeated records.
Back in the day, now they let guys on 6-3, 9-3.
Oh yeah. But like when you have that undefeated record and you're starting to climb the ranks, they really hype you now.
Yeah, they like the 5-0 now.
Yeah,
the 4-0.
The Hamzats.
But they don't. Back in the day, it was like 10-0, 12-0, or 9-0, and you beat everybody
before you're even in the UFC. Even
Frankie Edgar got in because he beat every top ranked person in the area, with Jim Miller being his last fight regionally, to be like 7-0 and then got in.
Oh, man,
and then the only reason he got in was because he went to the Ultimate Fighter, and they're like, hey, he doesn't really have the personality for the show, and they were just super impressed. And they were like, hey, we need somebody to fight Tyson Griffin in 3 weeks. You want it? He's like, oh yeah, fuck yeah. They're like, nobody wants to fight this guy because he beat Uriah.
I have noticed that there's a bit more of a dance now. Like I feel like back in like the 2015-ish era, like you had a bunch of top guys fighting top guys, but now it's like, I don't want to take that fight, it's dangerous. But
it's happened before. It's been probably about 12, 13, and it depends on your region and area. But there's also a business.
Yeah.
Like these promoters want the guy who sells the most tickets. The guy who sells the most tickets gets to pick the matchup or say yes or no.
But it's like I think is it welter? I think welterweight right now. Like there's really no fights because everybody thinks they deserve a title shot, and they're not wanting to fight amongst themselves in the top 5. Like Colby hasn't fought someone ranked top 10 in like 2 years.
Yeah, the welterweight division's kind of at a weird lull right now.
Yeah, and when I got into it, I think welterweight was the most exciting division.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it was. It's at a weird lull. I think right now Usman's kind of got the belt tied up, and Kobe's the real.
How do you beat that guy?
Well, you got Kazmat in the mix now. They have to let Kazmat in because they need fresh blood there.
Yeah,
and he's one of the him, O'Malley, and Patty are some of the biggest names.
I would say
now.
those 3 are probably going to be the next
Yeah,
flagships.
that's like the next generation of huge
Francis
stars.
too, if he can get his act together.
How old's Francis though?
34, 33,
Yeah,
34.
Heavyweights could do it a lot longer. He could.
Well, I think heavyweights generally carry a bit more star power too, don't they? At least they did in boxing.
Yeah, traditionally that's good. Nobody's got more star power than Conor.
Yeah.
And women also get a little star power at MMA and the UFC, which is cool for them. No other sport do they get more star power.
Yeah, I agree. Like,
what women's sport is that men will pay money to see women play? Not the WNBA?
No. When
Soccer a little bit.
Soccer a little bit.
A little bit.
When it's the World Cup, people will tune in because
Tune in.
just because
I'm saying
just because USA's women's soccer is so dominant, though. I think.
Okay, what do you think is more watched by Americans?
I think UFC by far.
I was going to say the Woman Ultimate Fighter
Yeah.
just went on.
Yeah.
Or the average women's soccer match.
Yeah.
That's what I would say is on the same scale because it's not a UFC fight.
You can't compare the World Cup to any UFC card either because that's once every 4 years. Like it's a big deal.
I couldn't think of a sport more watched.
Like
wrestling.
Specifically in America, I cannot. But I think probably in like Russia and like those countries, figure skating is probably up there.
Yeah, different class.
Yeah.
But you know what's great is that like a male-dominated sport like wrestling is really adapting to women wrestling.
I'm trying so hard to get Madeline to wrestle. She won't do it.
There's so many good women wrestlers.
She won't do it.
It's awesome and it's taken off. And that's so cool. They definitely had a big wall to get through because there was a lot of old dogs, sexist dogs, and just like any other sport. But like when you do women's football, you gotta get involved with a women's football league. Mm-hmm. They had to like break in the male things, and now they're starting to get women teams.
With like the women's football league too. Like the first 3 of those that tried to start were all gimmicks.
Yes.
You remember they were like playing in bikinis. I'm like, why can't you just let them play football? If they want to play football,
Yeah, why do you got to sexualize it?
Right, exactly.
But that's kind of what also women got to do in MMA.
Yeah.
For the most part. Well, not all of them.
You're seeing it in boxing.
Not all of them.
Yeah. I mean, Valentina is just a killer.
And she doesn't post
like
pictures
that,
of her clam online or every photo with her ass out. No.
Nope.
You don't see Amanda Nunes? Nope. I don't even think you see Pena.
No, I don't believe so.
No.
Mm-mm.
Rose
doesn't do it either.
Rose doesn't do it. You don't see also Tatiana Suarez
or Wei Li, Zhang Wei Li.
You see it more on the bottom end of the women's division, the gutter.
Yeah.
The girls that their skills can't so much take them forward that they gotta sexualize it to keep their relevance going.
Well, it's like fiscally irresponsible not to have an OnlyFans if you're a woman now, right? Almost. Like they're like people are just making an insane amount of money.
Yeah, I mean if you're not a good fighter, like
I mean,
Well,
you have girls.
if you're not elite level, like Paige Van Zandt.
There's girls that are making like $1 million a month, like just
I
wacky amounts of
wonder
money.
what Paige Van Zandt makes.
There's no telling.
Because if she didn't have MMA, she would just be a pretty girl.
Right.
She might be on like porn star level. Not high level porn star, just good porn star level. But because she has that MMA following and she was the hot chick, well, she was the hot girl in town for a while, full of a bunch of not so good looking girls in the beginning.
Marketable.
Yep, that's what she became for, and she won a couple fights. And then, because she had that in the UFC and didn't take her clothes off, starts an OnlyFans, and people will pay more.
Yep.
But if she was the average porn star,
Probably not.
no. But then again, you could also be like Cyborg,
Just a murderer.
just a murderer, and she
Yeah.
probably makes more with her MMA than she would if she had an OnlyFans.
Yeah. I think women's MMA too. They make a little bit more money in like one and stuff.
They don't. I'm pretty sure they don't make more money because they generally don't get the highest amount of viewers.
Well, they still have the tournament and whatnot. Like Kayla Harrison, is that her name?
That's PFL.
Is it PFL? That's probably what I meant then.
I'll tell you what, there's more opportunities to move up with a smaller record or a closer 50-50 record. You could still make the UFC. They have more opportunities to make money because there's less of them. And it's an easier path to the UFC, that's for sure. The talent level's a little less. There's only few girls who are at that super, super elite level.
Mm-hmm.
Where in the majority of the UFC, a lot of the guys are at a super elite level to get in, maybe less now because of Contender Series.
Right.
But, there is, because of that, because they still could enter in the UFC, and the starter contract is all the same.
Mm-hmm. I've started to notice too, we went through that phase where jiu-jitsu was like, I don't want to say the most desirable skill, but back 2012ish when jiu-jitsu was first coming onto the MMA scene, it was like a highly desirable skill.
2000, we're talking 2000, not even 2012. Yeah. We're talking.
And now you see 2000. Like wrestling dominance.
Well, it's like this: sport against sport, with no aspect of another sport. We're talking when it first started, the Gracies would go up, crowd their opponent, grab onto their neck, jump their legs around it, and pull them down and submit them.
Mm-hmm.
Wrestler, striker, that was Gracie jiu-jitsu and the epitome of self-defense. Go on down, grab them down to my guard and submit them. And it worked, art first art, with no awareness for other martial arts.
Right.
But then when there becomes awareness, you need to add these other things in. So what I think you are seeing now, what you may be trying to articulate a little bit, is that you are seeing, I like to call it more of a milled fighting grappling style. Guys who are hyper aware of submissions that are coming at them and can get out of them, but only working to ground and pound and work towards positions. Guys are no longer using, which jiu-jitsu was kind of perfectly invented, using their strikes and grappling to blend together to work towards the submission finish, not the ground and pound finish.
What I was gonna say is, like, you saw this kind of like period where wrestling is like a pretty good base, and now I've seen with a bunch of like newer people coming up, like judo's popping up now as like kind of a like it's harder for wrestlers to take down those judo players a little bit.
I think wrestling beats judo.
Think so?
Yeah.
Like at the highest levels.
Yeah, it is.
I've seen, when they pop up their accolades at the bottom, I'm seeing a lot more judo black belts these days than I have in the past.
It works well with the ladies, but you're going to see these wrestling chicks come up in the next few years.
Yeah.
I would say Tatiana Suarez is the lead of it, and that's probably my favorite girl fighter. I think she could beat Carolina.
She's good.
She's good.
She's very good.
The way she was on top of Rose, I'm not Rose, Carla Esparza, and throwing these man punches at her.
Yeah.
Just the torque she was creating with her shoulder. Sean Strickland also told me she beats up men in the room, and he would never give a woman a compliment. Never. And I hear she beats them up, calls them pussies, and then goes, and she's crazy and just goes, fucking yells at herself and like just talks to herself in the other room or something. I'm like, that's cool. That's badass. And that, like, her goal is to just be the best.
Yeah.
So I was like, I respect that.
Yeah, that's
sex.
That's kind of like the. You kind of have to carry a bit of that mentality, right?
But she's also the wrestler that you spoke of.
Yep.
So that's where we're at in ladies.
Mm-hmm.
So good point. Valid point.
I don't know. I think that we're going to see not like a resurgence of judo, but I think there's going to be some incorporation, especially against the cage. I think judo's pretty effective against the cage at being able to stay standing. Maybe.
No, judo's good. Judo's great. Wrestling's a little bit more like high-paced, I think. But I think you're going to see a lot more of these Sambo guys coming in. It's like the Sambo era. But also, I also think with the rise of these Dagestani fighters, that their kryptonite is Brazilian fighters. That's rock, paper, scissors. American beats Brazilian. Brazilian beats Dagestan. Dagestan beats America.
I'm in high anticipation of the Makhachev Oliveira fight.
I got a parlay going.
Oh yeah.
So I got Oliveira.
Mm-hmm.
I think rock, paper beats rock.
So my opinion on that fight is I'm not going to say that I think their ground games are going to neutralize each other. I don't think that's true.
No,
I think
because he's sub Jim Miller.
Well, I also think that they're so good in their respective areas. If you give either one of them an inch, they'll probably just take over, right? But I think Oliveira's striking is much better than Islam's.
And he's got more power. And Jim Miller is a better top grappler than Makhachev.
Yeah, Jim Miller's pressure.
Sorry.
Jim Miller's pressure is very good.
No, but he's also an attacker and a submission artist, and he's one of the rare breeds that incorporates striking to work towards his finish.
That was a fantastic fight for Cowboy to go out on. I will say that.
Jim Miller's the same age, same stats, and he's still got miles left.
He wants to fight at UFC 300. That's what he said.
Jim Miller?
Yep.
Good for him.
Yeah.
But he is one of him, Damian Maia, those are the last, like, grapplers that aren't milled grapplers, if you understand. Not the last, but that's what comes to mind. And Oliveira.
I was watching a bunch of Damian Maia's jiu-jitsu content, and man, is his style not perfect for MMA? Like the way he grapples, it's so good.
Me and him do a lot of things similar. I always say I fight like Damian Maia when I fought, because we like our single legs to the back, and it was pretty much always worked towards working to the back, which is actually something Gordon Ryan always talks about. Like, every time you grapple, your intention should be to work towards your best position. So every time I grapple, I think about how I'm going to take the back, just the best position.
I was watching this thing that he was talking about, because he does not like the is it the samurai roll or the ninja roll? You know what I'm talking about, where you have side control and you have like a leg weave and you roll and take their back?
Yes.
He hates that. Can't stand it. And he's like, why wouldn't you just, like, he basically takes that extended leg and knee bars them until they give their back to him. And he's like, I keep top position the whole time. Why would I roll?
Yeah, exactly. Dan Henderson was huge on, like, never pull somebody on top of you.
Yeah.
Never go to, which essentially in jiu-jitsu also, if you want to take that concept, is, like, never pull somebody into a better position to take a better position.
Yeah.
Because you're putting somebody on top of you to work towards a better position, but the guy who's aware of his balance and his body is going to then stuff it. Or go for that knee bar.
When you're talking about jiu-jitsu in a vacuum too, I've been thinking lately, like, even when you're in guard, like, don't let anybody, like, fully lay you down either. You know what I mean? Like, you should never be on both shoulders, right?
Yes.
Seldomly.
Seldomly. There's always, like they say, you should never plant on the mat, but there's at times you got to plant. But you should be on a hip or up a little bit.
Right.
If you don't want to be separated top from the bottom too much.
Mm.
Well, Colton, it's been great to have you on.
It's a good time.
Awesome to talk MMA, jiu-jitsu, soccer. Thank you for being a long-time member. Actually, before I cut you loose, I do have one question I wanted to ask you. How'd you find us, Militia?
So I dabbled in MMA before a little bit, like through Blaylock.
You tried Blaylock?
A little bit, like.
He had a free trial, or you did a week or a month or two?
No, I did like a day and got beat up and.
They threw you to the wolves?
Yeah.
Did you say like, oh yeah, or?
It was I don't know. It just didn't click at that time. I was doing other things, and I was like, that was fun, but I would rather not get smashed by Ian Stevens for another hour. So
they threw you against the top dog because you said, hey.
Because I showed up. That was kind of their mentality.
Were you just expecting to like punch a pad?
Maybe.
Or were you expected to like, hey, I'm gonna get into a fight today?
No, I didn't. I didn't think sparring on the first day was in the cards.
He also had a karate element to him.
Yeah, a little bit.
So you thought like, oh, I might punch this black pad right here at the century.
No, nothing like that. I thought it would be more like I was looking for something to keep me in shape.
So you didn't. What I'm trying to get at.
Like pad work, stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah, like hit a pad,
right?
Or you like stand in line, and go who's.
No, I was expecting an MMA gym. Like
okay.
I knew what I was going into.
Okay, what year is this?
2015 probably.
Okay.
14, 15.
Okay. Yeah. So.
Because he used to be he had a spot in Fort O for a little while, so it was like real close to my house.
So you were expecting.
I just popped in.
You expect to do drills or be like, this is a punch, this is a cross.
And like it was weird because I was like, I was sitting thinking one day, I was like, it's only a matter of time until someone actually good opens a gym in Chattanooga, because we have a pretty good wrestling scene. Like, it's the perfect city right between Nashville and Atlanta. Like, if someone super serious from either of those cities wants a good camp, like this is a good spot to have it, So, and then I was just Googling it one day, and I was like, looky here, UFC veteran.
Did you watch that season of The Ultimate Fighter or anything?
I never liked The Ultimate Fighter.
Fair enough.
When I watched The Ultimate Fighter, I would always just skip to the fights.
So, yeah, you went through, you typed the record in, and you're like, let's see if this guy's real.
Yeah, I watched, I cannot find your fight with Klaus on, like, I can't find it.
It's all right. They don't let slaughters out on the internet.
But, I watched your fight. I can't recall the guy's name, but
probably Gordon or Edwards. That was a big one.
Maybe it was Edwards, but you ended up choking him. You got beat up a little bit on the feet, and then it was you ended up choking him.
Yeah, I actually those fights were so back to back. I actually had a little residual from my fight with Gordon because I took big shots with Gordon. So it was funny because once I got touched and I dropped, and then. Joe Stevenson had one even back-to-back, and then he got dropped and beat up in the first one. And then he got knocked out brutally in the second one. Like, they cut the time, but he was asleep for a little bit.
But, yeah, I found the website. I think I emailed you. And then I came in, and then it was just like me in jiu-jitsu class for like a week. I was like, I'm going to milk this as long as I can.
You're like, this is the place. This guy's going to teach me.
And then, you know how it is. Like, I grew up, like, I can't sit around. Like, don't get me wrong, I love video games. I'll sit around but, like, I physically can't just, like, sit around and get fat. It's not going to work. So, I need something to do.
And then you got hooked.
And then I got hooked.
Well, Colton, it's amazing having you on the team. Anything you want to give a shout out to? Maybe your business or?
Nah, they'll be all right.
Maybe your family.
They're good too. They're good.
Right.
Yeah.
Are they gonna even listen?
Love them. Nah, they're not gonna listen to me. They listen to me enough.
You're like not straight.
Yeah. Tori is the most like it's weird because like she is the most separated person from any sort of athleticism. Not that she's like out of shape. Like she's not out of shape, but like she didn't play sports or anything, so it's a very interesting dynamic. Because like Madeline's super into it now.
Yeah.
And obviously, I'm super into it now, so she's a little bit
She's
trying to catch up.
She's like, all right, it's an hour you out of the house or something.
Yeah.
Like 2 hours. Yeah, that's fine. Don't get beat up too bad.
I could be in much worse places, you know.
Yeah. Well, Colton, amazing having you on the podcast. Even more amazing having you at the gym.
Appreciate it, Coach.
Guys, that's it. I'll see you next week.